There was a story with a child who comes to her mother, and she starts complaining how life is so difficult, and she starts telling her mother, life is so hard, and it's hard to make friends, and just like, why does life have to be so challenging in so many different ways? And the mother starts hearing out her daughter, and she says, come with me, I want to show you something. So she takes her daughter to the kitchen, and she takes out 3 pots, and she places them on the stove. And then she fills up each pot with water, and then she turns up the fire under the pots. And then she goes into her cabinets, and she pulls out a potato, a coffee bean, and then she goes into the fridge, and she pulls out an egg. And she says to her daughter, I want to show you something. And her daughter's like, Mom, I came here for some validation, and instead of giving me a cooking lesson, just have patience. And then she takes out the potato, and she puts it into the first pot. And then she takes out the egg, and she places it into the second pot. And then she takes the coffee bean, and she places it into the third pot. So she's just waiting there patiently to see where her mother's going at with this. And sometime later, eventually, she says, okay, now it's time. She takes out from the first pot the potato, and she shows it to her daughter. She says, when I put in this potato, it was hard. But look at it now. What happens to a potato that gets boiled under heat? It becomes soft. And then she takes out the egg. A soft egg that was placed inside this pot now comes out hard. Because when you boil eggs, they become hard. She says, now let's take a look at the third pot. They take a look at the third pot, and they see that the entire pot became coffee. So she turns to her daughter and she says, my daughter, I want to teach you a lesson that you should never forget. There are 3 types of people in life. There are those who are like the potato. When life gets challenging, when life gets difficult, they become soft, and they start giving up, and they start getting weak and depressed, and they don't want to move on. They don't want to move forward. They just become very weak. And there's another type of person who's like the egg. When you put him into challenging times, when you give him a challenge and he's faced with difficulty, he becomes hard and miserable. Although they're soft people, they're nice, but all of a sudden they can't deal when life gets hard. They can't deal with challenges. They become miserable, they become angry, they become aggravated, they become frustrated. But then there's a third type of person, and that's the coffee bean. And we should all strive to be like the coffee bean. What's the difference between the potato, the egg, and the coffee bean? The difference is, while the potato and the egg allowed the situation around them to change them for the worse, the coffee bean, not only did it remain a coffee bean, but it allowed himself to bring out his own potential, and he became coffee. He allowed the heat around him to extract the potential from within him that was so deeply rooted within. He understood that this is a moment that could either break me or make me. And he chose to allow the situation to make him into the best version of himself, to become the best that he can become. He was able to fulfill his potential in this world and become coffee. And that is the lesson of the coffee bean. L'chaim. You see, we have to learn from the coffee bean that instead of getting soft and miserable, understand this is a challenge. Understand that Hashem is doing this because you're best, because He loves you, because He wants to bring out the most in you. And He knows the only way to do this is if you will be facing these challenges. If life was always easy and everything was smooth, you'll never grow. The only way to grow is through hardships. The only way to grow is through challenges. It's inevitable. Nobody could bypass challenges. Nobody in this world has a smooth life.